You're listening to The Story Drift by Rainrose.
Good evening. Tonight we journey into the very heart of a modern storm, a most unsettling variety, I assure you. Our story begins with Megan Brett, a beautiful widowed novelist who has come to assist her sister in a moment of crisis. Ah yes, family. How comforting. Yet, as she approaches her sister Pia's silent mansion on this stormy night, comfort is precisely what she will not find. Within these walls lies more than just a quiet home. There are secrets here, secrets carefully hidden beneath the veneer of wealth and sophistication. As thunder growls in the distance and the rain insists on its presence, Megan will soon discover the fine line between loyalty and deception, between familiar warmth and the cold chill of danger. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to consider: how well do you truly know the people you trust, and what happens when the storm outside pales in comparison to the storm within? Welcome to Twisted Vows, for richer or plunder.
As the howling wind whips through the streets of Toronto, Megan Brett pulls her Tesla into the driveway of her sister Pia's upscale Rosedale mansion. The storm that has been brewing all day is now in full force, matching the tumult in Megan's heart. Just hours earlier, Pia had FaceTimed her, voice breaking as she announced her decision to divorce her husband, Jackson. The wipers fight a losing battle against the deluge as Megan peers through the windshield at the imposing structure. Something feels off. The house stands dark and silent, a stark contrast to its usual warm glow. Pia's Range Rover is in the garage, but there's no sign of life inside. Megan rushes to the front door, her Louboutins clicking against the wet pavement. She fumbles with her spare key, the rain soaking through her tailored pantsuit. The door swings open with an ominous creak, revealing a house shrouded in darkness.
Pia,
Megan calls out, her voice echoing through the empty foyer.
girl, where you at?
Silence answers her. Megan's heart races as she moves through the house, flicking on lights and calling for her sister. Each empty room amplifies her growing unease. A sudden noise from the kitchen makes Megan jump. She whirls around to find Marla, Pia's housekeeper, emerging from the pantry.
Marla, what are you doing here? I thought Pia gave you the boot.
Megan scoffs, eyebrow raised. The elderly woman's eyes narrow.
Mr. Reeves rehired me. This house has been my responsibility for 20 years. I won't leave just because Mrs. Reeves had a hissy fit.
Megan's unease deepens. Something about Marla's demeanor sends a chill down her spine. As the housekeeper shuffles away, muttering under her breath, Megan can't shake the feeling that she's missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. The next few hours are a blur of frantic texts, calls, and growing dread. Megan tries Pia's cell repeatedly, each unanswered ring intensifying her panic. She DMs Pia's friends, but no one has seen or heard from her sister since the previous evening. As night falls, the storm outside reaches a fever pitch. Tree branches lash against the windows, and thunder rumbles ominously in the distance. Megan paces the living room, her mind racing through worst-case scenarios. A knock at the door startles her from her thoughts. She rushes to answer it, hope flaring in her chest. But instead of Pia, she finds herself face to face with Jackson Reeves, Pia's soon-to-be ex-husband. Jackson stands on the doorstep, rain dripping from his expensive suit. His piercing blue eyes meet Megan's, a mixture of concern and something else. Something Megan can't quite place, swirling in their depths.
Megan, what are you doing here?
Jackson asks, his voice smooth as silk despite the storm raging around them. Megan's guard immediately goes up.
I could ask you the same thing, Jackson. Pia told me you were in Vancouver closing some big tech deal.
A flicker of something, surprise, guilt, crosses Jackson's face before his corporate mask slips back into place.
Change of plans. I realized Pia and I needed to talk things through, but she's not here?
Megan shakes her head, studying Jackson's reaction carefully.
No, and I'm low-key freaking out. She's ghosted everyone. Her wallet and keys are still here, and nobody's seen her since yesterday.
Jackson runs a hand through his salt and pepper hair, his brow furrowing.
That's not like Pia at all. Have you called the police?
The Wi-Fi's down 'cause of the storm, and my phone's got no bars out here.
Megan explains, frustration evident in her voice. Megan's eyes narrow. Jackson nods, his expression grave.
Let me go change out of these wet clothes, and we'll figure out our next move.
As Jackson disappears upstairs, Megan can't shake the feeling that something is terribly wrong. She's never trusted Jackson. There was always something cold lurking behind his tech bro charm. And now, with Pia missing and Jackson showing up unexpectedly, her instincts are screaming that there's more to this situation than meets the eye. Megan's gaze falls on a framed selfie of Pia and Jackson from their Bali honeymoon. Pia's radiant smile contrasts sharply with the memory of her tear-stained face on FaceTime earlier. What had happened in the intervening hours to make Pia vanish without a trace? A soft thud from upstairs breaks through Megan's internal dialogue. She freezes, listening intently. Another thud, followed by what sounds like muffled voices. Megan's heart pounds as she slowly makes her way towards the staircase.
Jackson,
She calls out, her voice trembling slightly.
is everything okay up there?
No response. Gathering her courage, Megan begins to climb the stairs, each step creaking under her weight. The voices grow louder as she approaches the master bedroom. She can make out Jackson's low tones, but the other voice, a woman's, is too quiet to identify. Megan's hand hovers over the doorknob, her mind racing. Should she burst in? Call out again? As she wavers, the door suddenly swings open, revealing Jackson, alone.
Megan, you startled me.
He says, his smile not quite reaching his eyes.
I was just on a Zoom call with my office, seeing if they'd heard from Pia.
Megan's eyes narrow.
I thought the Wi-Fi was down.
It is.
Jackson replies smoothly. Before Megan can press further, a crash echoes from downstairs, followed by the sound of breaking glass. They both jump, exchanging alarmed glances.
Stay here.
Jackson orders, moving towards the stairs.
I'll check it out.
But Megan isn't about to let Jackson out of her sight.
Yeah, no, not happening, bruh.
She follows close behind as they descend the staircase, the storm outside reaching a crescendo. They find Marla in the kitchen, sweeping up the shattered remains of a vase. The old woman mutters something about the wind knocking it over, but Megan can't shake the feeling that there's more to the story. As Jackson helps Marla clean up, Megan's gaze is drawn to a gleam of metal peeking out from under the refrigerator. She bends down, her breath catching in her throat as she realizes what it is. Pia's favorite Apple Watch, the one Megan had given her for her last birthday. Megan's mind races. Why would Pia's watch be here under the fridge? And if Pia had been in the kitchen recently, why hadn't Marla mentioned seeing her? A sudden bark makes everyone jump. Rusty, Pia's chocolate cockapoo, comes bounding into the kitchen, his tail wagging furiously. The dog makes a beeline for Megan, whining and pawing at her leg.
What's the matter, Rusty boy? Where's Mama?
Rusty turns and runs towards the back door, looking back at Megan expectantly. Without a word to Jackson or Marla, Megan follows Rusty to the door. The storm has calmed somewhat, but rain still falls steadily. Rusty bounds out into the backyard, heading straight for the old gardening shed at the far end of the property. Megan's breath comes in short gasps as she runs after the dog, her heels sinking into the muddy grass. Behind her, she can hear Jackson calling her name, his footsteps splashing through puddles as he gives chase. Rusty reaches the shed first, scratching at the door and whining urgently. Megan's hands shake as she fumbles with the rusty latch. As the door creaks open, a gust of wind kills her phone's flashlight, plunging her into darkness.
Megan, wait.
Jackson's voice comes from right behind her, startling her. She feels his hand on her shoulder, trying to pull her back. But Megan shrugs him off, squinting into the gloom of the shed. As her eyes adjust, she makes out a shape on the floor. A human form, bound and gagged.
Oh my God!
Pia's eyes are wide with fear, darting between Megan and something behind her. Too late! Megan realizes her mistake. As she begins to turn, A sharp pain explodes in her head, and the world goes black. When Megan comes to, she finds herself bound next to Pia in the cramped shed. Her sister is awake, tears streaming down her face. In the faint light filtering through the cracks in the walls, Megan can see a nasty bruise blooming on Pia's cheek. Outside, they can hear voices, Jackson and Marla, arguing in hushed but heated tones. As the storm rages outside, Megan and Pia work frantically to free themselves from their bonds. The old shed creaks and groans under the assault of the wind, threatening to collapse at any moment.
Sis, I'm so sorry.
Pia whispers, her voice barely audible over the howling gale.
I had no idea Jackson could be capable of this.
Megan grunts as she finally manages to loosen the rope around her wrists.
Save it for later, Pia. We need to get out of here before they come back.
Just as Megan frees herself and starts working on Pia's restraints, the shed door flies open. Silhouetted against the stormy night sky stands Marla, her eyes wild with a mix of fear and determination.
I can't let you leave.
The old woman says, brandishing a kitchen knife.
Mr. Reeves promised me enough money to retire comfortably. I won't let you ruin everything.
Megan rises slowly, positioning herself between Marla and Pia.
Marla, think about what you're doing. Is money really worth becoming a murderer?
It's too late for that. I'm already in too deep.
As Marla lunges forward with the knife, Megan ducks and tackles her around the waist. The two women crash to the ground, wrestling for control of the weapon. Rain pours in through the open door, turning the dirt floor to mud. Meanwhile, Pia manages to work her way free of her bonds. She scrambles to her feet, searching desperately for something to use as a weapon. Outside, a car engine roars to life. Jackson's voice carries over the storm.
Marla, we need to go now. The police are on their way.
Distracted by Jackson's shout, Marla's grip on the knife loosens. Megan seizes the opportunity, wrenching the blade from the older woman's grasp and scrambling backward.
It's over, Marla. Give it up.
But Marla's eyes have gone wide with panic. She lunges for Megan again, heedless of the danger. In the chaos that follows, the knife slips, and Marla falls back with a shocked gasp, crimson blooming across her chest.
Oh, God.
Megan breathes, horrified. She drops the knife as if it's burned her. Pia rushes to Marla's side, pressing her hands over the wound.
We need to get her help.
Jackson appears in the doorway, his face a mask of cold fury.
You've ruined everything.
He snarls, pulling a gun from his waistband. Megan instinctively steps in front of Pia, her voice trembling but defiant.
Jackson, why would you do this?
A bitter laugh escapes Jackson's lips.
Why? You want to know why? Because I'm sick of it all. Sick of playing the perfect husband to your precious, pretentious sister.
Pia's voice is barely whispered.
Jackson, I thought we were happy.
Happy?
Jackson spits the word like a curse.
How could I be happy with someone so self-absorbed, so caught up in her own little world? Do you have any idea how suffocating it is to live with your holier-than-thou attitude?
Rain lashes against the shed as Jackson takes a step closer, his eyes wild.
I stayed for the money, Pia. That's it. Your family's fortune. Your precious AI startup. That's all I ever wanted. And now you want a divorce? Well, this is how it has to be.
Megan's mind races, trying to find a way out.
But why involve Marla? She's been with the family for years.
A cruel smile twists Jackson's features.
Oh, that's the best part. Tell them, Marla. Tell them why you're really here.
All eyes turn to Marla, who's still clutching her wounded chest. The old woman's face crumples with shame.
I forged Mrs. Reeves's signature on a revised will. Mr. Reeves promised me enough money to retire comfortably if I helped him.
Pia gasps, the betrayal cutting deep.
I'm sorry.
Marla sobs.
I never meant for it to go this far.
Jackson laughs, the sound echoing eerily in the cramped space.
But it has gone this far, and now there's no turning back.
He levels the gun at Megan.
I can't let either of you leave here alive.
The tension in the shed is palpable, the air thick with fear and the metallic scent of Marla's blood. Outside, the storm rages on, as if nature itself is mirroring the turmoil within. Megan's eyes dart around, searching desperately for a way out. Pia stands frozen, tears streaming down her face as she stares at the man she thought she knew.
You won't get away with this,
Megan says, trying to keep her voice steady.
People will ask questions.
Jackson's smile is cold and confident.
Will they? 2 sisters, tragically lost in a terrible storm. Their bodies never found. It's the perfect cover.
As he speaks, Megan notices a subtle movement behind Jackson. Rusty, forgotten in the chaos, is creeping slowly towards the open door.
You're forgetting one thing, Jackson,
Megan says, trying to keep his attention.
You can't predict everything. Life has a way of throwing curveballs.
Jackson's eyebrow arches.
Oh? And what curveball do you think is coming to save you now?
At that moment, several things happen at once. Rusty launches himself at Jackson with a fierce growl. Startled, Jackson squeezes the trigger, the gunshot deafeningly loud in the confined space. Megan tackles Pia to the ground as the bullet whizzes overhead. In the ensuing chaos, the sisters make a desperate break for the door. They stumble out into the raging storm, the wind and rain immediately drenching them.
Shit! Come back here!
Jackson's enraged roar barely carries over the howling wind. Megan and Pia run blindly through the backyard, hands clasped tightly together. Behind them, they can hear Jackson crashing through the underbrush, his curses mixing with the rumble of thunder. Jackson manages to shake off Rusty and regain control of the gun. He aims it at Megan, his finger tightening on the trigger. Suddenly, the night explodes with red and blue lights. Police cars screech into the driveway, officers pouring out with weapons drawn.
Police, drop the weapon.
Jackson hesitates for a split second, his eyes darting between Megan, Pia, and the advancing officers. Then, with a snarl of defiance, he turns the gun on himself.
No.
Pia gasps. But before Jackson can pull the trigger, a deafening crack of thunder shakes the very ground. A massive tree branch, torn loose by the storm, comes crashing down. It strikes Jackson, knocking him to the ground and sending the gun spinning away into the darkness. As the police swarm in to secure Jackson and tend to the injured Marla, Megan and Pia cling to each other, shaking with relief and residual terror.
Thank God, it's over.
Megan murmurs, stroking her sister's hair.
It's finally over.
Pia nods, tears mixing with the rain on her face.
I can't believe it. How did they know to come?
Megan manages a weak smile.
Remember when Rusty brought me my phone? Looks like my 911 call went through.
As paramedics arrive and the scene bustles with activity, Detective Sarah Chen approaches the sisters. Ms. Brett, Ms. Reeves, I'm going to need to take your statements. But first, are you both all right? Megan and Pia exchange a long look, years of shared history and unspoken understanding passing between them.
We will be.
Pia says, squeezing Megan's hand.
We've got each other.
As the storm begins to subside, the first hints of dawn peek through the clouds. Megan, Pia, and Rusty huddle together under a blanket, watching as Jackson and a bandaged Marla are led away in handcuffs.
What do we do now?
Pia asks softly. Megan pulls her sister closer.
We heal, we move forward, and we remember that no matter what storms life throws at us, we're stronger together.
The sun breaks through the clouds, casting a golden light over the rain-soaked landscape. As sirens fade into the distance,